Look what we have here. BH full carbon Ultegra componentry 10-speed. Pretty nice bike. Did not know very much about BH at all, and apparently they've been around for over 100 years. They actually built military type weapons and so forth, and during World War I, and around 1923 or so started building bicycles. So hey, another classic old bike company making newer road bikes of today. Still around today, not so much in the United States, don't see them very often, but definitely a European market brand. But yeah, let's dive into this after this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary how to use one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe.
Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with a guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy on this old bike series, and we're checking out this BH full carbon Ultegra bike. Hey, pretty cool. I've seen these around, not a lot of them, but the company's been around for over 100 years, like my intro say. So it's kind of interesting to look them up and go, wow, some old time factory pictures and so forth. But in any case, I'm going to dive into this. This is a referral from a previous customer, which, you know, all bike shops and all bike mechanics love referrals. Why? Well, you know you're just doing a good job, and they're actually telling their buddies like, hey, take it to this person or take it to this shop. They will take care of you. So lo and behold, here I am with another referral from this gentleman, and all I've heard from any of them that I've worked on their bikes is positive. So that's great. That means I'm doing actually a good job and actually doing valid work here. But in any case, this individual does a fair bit of riding. It's an older cat, yeah, no worries. There's a lot of people out there that do some good riding, and I look forward to doing that myself. It inspires me to get out there and ride to, you know, your 60s and your 70s and even up to your 80s. Well, these are one of those older, I wouldn't say senior, because they're not acting like they're seniors. They're just active old dudes. They probably, you know, take naps like I do now. I don't know, maybe I'm starting to creep up to that age. Regardless of being, they ride. Well, this particular bike is one of many in their stable. And the reason being is they have e-bike, which electric assists. Sometimes older groups who want to do group rides and so forth want to do that kind of riding and so forth, which is great. But this is his actual regular friction shifter, kind of, you know, cable actuated kind of bike. So with this particular bike, he's taken to an event where they don't allow e-bikes. So here we go. We're going to be working on this guy. Let's dive into it and tell a little story. So yeah, I'm going to pop these wheels and we'll inspect. This is actually a Shimano wheel set, which is actually pretty nice. You know, standard skewer. Hubs feel pretty good. Fancy little anodized alloy red nipples. Yeah, that matches the red decaling. So it's kind of fun when they do wheels like this. Actually put a little style into it. Matches the decaling of the bike itself. And these are the Ultegra brakes here with the coating. Brake pads actually look pretty good. So I want to talk about this. What they did is upgrade XT mountain bike rear derailleur to get a longer cage to accommodate a wider range Crankset, more of a mountain bike gearing ratio with a double up front. Well, they wanted a triple, but this is probably your cheaper option because you just need to switch out your chain, cassette, and get a longer cage derailleur. Or you can get a derailleur drop down from Wolf Tooth, which looks similar to this. What that does is pushes the derailleur down, you know, about, I would say, 14, 13 millimeters down, so it actually gives a better clearance for the range, that kind of thing. So that's one of those situations where they actually try to add more range to the gears on that. Open up the brake, knock it down to the smallest cog so you know you're not fighting the derailleur, and lo and behold, the wheel comes right out. Same thing, alloy nipples, and got a cassette that we need to clean. This is more on your upper level tune-up where the drivetrain is going to be cleaned, and I'm going to add a little ceramic touch-up to the paint after I get it cleaned up and try to get rid of some of these boo-boo scratches that's on there just for them because it's a, you know, referral customer and we want to make sure they're taken care of. More or less I would do that with the first time customer as well, but gonna pop this, make it clean. Take your chain whip, wrap around, lock ring remover tool. That's why you need to do it on the floor so you can get some leverage and pop that guy off. And this is when we're done with the chain whip. Set that aside, and this whole cassette should slide right off like so. And that exposes the inside of the hub so we can get it a good cleaning. And this is the time when we inspect that hub and see if it's smooth. It feels good. So yeah, we're looking good here. Also looking at the brake surface and the brake pads, this bike has not been ridden very much, so it should be a fairly easy tune-up, like less scaries, but that doesn't mean that you can't find any scaries. I'm sure there's something in there, but just lo and behold, it's going to turn out to be a fine-tuned machine after this. I did check the chain on this one, and it's not stretched, so we're just going to go ahead and use a removal tool and get this chain all cleaned up with the cassette. Going to be replacing cables on this guy, so I'm just going to pop these. That way I got some cleaner shifting in the back and the front. Save this for measuring and pull the cables forward. That way I'm able to get to the rear derailleur. And this guy doesn't have too much of a built-up. Ooh, look at that. See how that derailleur hanger is just kind of literally hanging there, all loose like? Well, we need to make sure those hanger bolts are tight, because this will prevent the shifting to be very smooth or accurate. Even though it's being compressed by the skewer, it's not that great. And you don't want to lose any of these little bolts in the back. They're very small Allen, so we'll tighten those up and make sure they're secure. And looking at the rear derailleur, doesn't look like a lot of buildup, maybe a little bit. So we'll remove that prior to the ultrasonic cleaner, and we'll make sure it gets a good cleaning. So this particular derailleur hanger, the mounting bolts are on the inside for tightening. And you can see this top one is backed out. So you want to get your Allen key in there. And we're going to tighten both up, back and forth, so we get even tension on both, like so. Do this now so I don't forget, so you can see that's really secure now. And now we're not going to have any compromised shifting because of this boy. So we got this guy here. Release the cable, get that out of the way. So I can just take off the braze-on mount here if I want, or I can take off the whole clamp. But since I'm going to be cleaning the frame, I kind of want to take the whole derailleur off. Therefore, I can get a good cleaning of the frame, get a good ceramic coating underneath that, because that's where there's a little trap of contaminants can happen. Not necessarily it's a carbon frame, it's not going to rust, but you still want to clean that level of ickiness off the frame. As you can see, it's already starting to build up, and that way it will protect it a little bit more. Sometimes the clamps like this will pop the clear coat a little bit, which is perfectly normal on these guys, but you want to do everything we can to do prevention. And to clean the crankset, I like to remove the pedals. Just enables me to get to those scary bits a little bit easier. So, and it doesn't get a jarred end ultrasonic cleaner. And to remove pedals, pedaling forward, to take them off, to put them back on, pedal backwards. And that's the easiest way to remember versus right or left thread. Two things we want to do is, first we got to remove the crank, and by doing that, this has two pinch bolts, one on each side. They're between 12 to 14 newton meters to tighten down. So I want to back these off so I can slide it off the center pole of the crank that goes through. And I have this fancy little tool here which grabs the adjuster nut, and I can unscrew that out. What makes this tool super fancy is it has this little hook thing. So when I get these guys loose enough, That's not quite loose. Let's get that tool in there. Flush, there we go. That releases the pressure on this clamp here. There's a pin indicator which goes in and side, up and down, and this guy will slide right off. And that little hole here is that's where the pin fits through. Ooh, we want to clean up all that gunk, don't we? Put the tool away, and this goes in ultrasonic cleaner as well. Now we push the crank through. Boom. All right, now we can check the bearings. This is how we can actually see how smooth they are. And as I figured, since it didn't have a lot of use, this has a lot of smoothness to it. These are actually not too expensive to replace. They're only, I don't know, 30 to 40, maybe 50 bucks for the higher end ones. So the bottom bracket portion, these are two separate cup systems that thread in to the frame. You got to have a special tool. Special tool is probably, I'd say about 30 bucks to take it on and off. So looking at this, between that and a Torx wrench, you're probably looking at about $100, $150 for the tools just to do this kind of mechanism work here. That's if you don't have anything already in your stable. And we're going to remove this guide here so we can clean underneath as well and find that serial number for them. All right. I want to be careful down here because this is where a lot of contaminants and corrosion can happen. Even though it's carbon, it's threading into something, right? Either, I doubt, raw carbon. So you never know. You may have a seized bolt situation where you want to make sure you don't do any damage, but it doesn't look too bad. But it is definitely dirty, and we want to clean this area up. And once we refresh it with cables and lube it, so you have the best shifting without any kind of friction prevention here. So during inspection and drop-off, I did notice there's some paint chipping and flaking away. So what I'm going to do is going to try to cut around to where the paint is still adhered. It looks like there's a double clear coat because obviously carbon is not white. So they painted the bike probably a blank white coloring and put this heavier color on there. Not sure why this is kind of flaked up the way it's done. Most likely is when they put the bottom bracket cup in there, maybe it cracked it, or there's a bubble underneath and that actually pinched through, and if a chain got dropped underneath there, it might have kind of impacted it and popped it a little. Whatever the case may be, this is definitely flaking. I don't want to tear it because I don't want to tear into where it could be still good material. And when I clean this area up, I'm going to try to flush that current paint onto that sub paint level so it's a good like non-catching surface. So it's pretty smooth, so if that chain does drop in that area, it's not going to do this again and prevent it. You're not going to be able to see this area anyway because it's covered up with the crankset. The customer's not too concerned about that portion of it. Just make sure it's just cleaned up and inspected for any kind of cracks or wear or tear. I doubt I see any cracks and so forth, but I'll dive into that when I do the detailing and see what kind of mysteries that we have within this area. So far right now, I've come across the two major little weird issues. Trailer hanger and this needs to be inspected. So in any case, on to removing the rest. So in order to detail underneath here, I'm not going to totally disassemble the brake. It's first very clean, so we don't need to do that. I don't think the cables need to be replaced for the braking at all. The shifting, definitely, that's going to help with the shifting, but with the braking, it seemed very smooth. So in this case, I'm just going to pull these brake calipers off and set them aside, still connected, and just make sure they're out of the way. So when I do dive into the frame detailing of this portion of this repair, I have full access to all this dirt and grime and get that all cleaned out for them. And I want to make sure I get this little bit popped out. There you go. Use the hand to catch the parts, because if it hits the floor, it'll shoot off a direction and you'll never see it again. So this guy, I think, is long enough. I can just kind of hook it there, do the same to the front. So I gotta be mindful with this computer. I mean, obviously I can put it back on there fairly easily for the customer, but I still on debate if I'm going to take it off and re-zip tie it or just leave it be and just work around it. So gonna think about that one, but we'll see how much craziness I get into. My computer on this one is still alive, so I'm not gonna just, some of them are usually dead and the customers are like, just chuck it, because tech has changed so much since these computers have been out. It's almost kind of I don't know, it's like going to your original Apple computer and expecting to do things. But it does the basics. But the thing is nowadays you have Map My Ride and that kind of deal, which on your apps or your watch or whatever, which I end up using most of the time anyway, due to the fact that I really don't need to know my wattage and all that. But there's people that do. I'm not knocking that at all. But if you're just a recreational riding or not really care about wattage putted, that kind of stuff, you may not need to go that extreme. But there are some actually pretty cool computers, the Strava, the Garmin's, all those kinds of stuff. It's kind of cool. And I do like to take the bottle cages off. Reason being is I can make sure the bottle cage bolts are not compromised. And in addition to, it makes it easier to clean and inspect. Also, when I add that ceramic coating to the frame, it's easier to prevention. You can see there's a built-up of extra gunk here from just the cage itself just sitting. So therefore, kind of want to try to strip it down, which in that case, I'm really thinking that I'm going to remove that computer. But looking how this is assembled, I see a little bit of grease on here. So whoever assembled this bike actually did the proper preventatives in the case of putting a little grease on the bolts, putting on there. Way bueno, good job. No bueno if those things get stuck on there. It's not good. All right, let's talk about some insights of this rider. Apparently he has received a kidney from the person that referred him, which was kind of a crazy story. So he has a donated kidney, and the charity ride he's riding for, he'll have to correct me, but it's basically a donor charity type ride, and it's in a different state, I think, Tennessee, so forth. I should really listen better, but I was literally looking at his bike when he was talking to the story. But a kind of a cool story that he's actually doing this event, and he can't take electric assist bikes, so he's busting out his road bike here and going to do those events. So he does a couple of them throughout the year, as well as the gentleman that donated. And the thing is, they both have had brain injuries as well. And you wouldn't tell. These individuals, you can't tell they had any brain injuries and so forth. But I did want to take a little side note saying, hey, you need to wear one of these. Yep, this one's actually decaled as a brain. Protect that noggin. Reason, you only get one. And one person said, well, if you're not smart enough to wear a helmet, well, you just ain't that smart. I think we are all that smart. We just make stupid decisions sometimes. And in this case, this helmet was designed for a specific charity. That charity I don't think is actually still valid, but it is Brain Injury Awareness Month. And it's one of those things that, yes, very big advocate of safety. This is definitely in that case. And if anybody out there goes for a bike ride, you're really high-centered, and there's only like 2 contacts or 3 it's going to hit when you fall. Either your hands, or you put your foot down, or your head. So keep in mind that you only get one of those, and accidents on a bike, brain injuries are horrible. It's not something like, oh, it's just something to brush off. If you hear the stories of individuals recovering from brain damage incidences, that's if they do get a chance to recover fully, that's great. But a lot of times they're not. They are locked into a wheelchair. And it's not just you. It is everybody around you that is affected. Your kids, your significant others, your parents. Think about it. And please use your helmet. I know. I'm preaching to the choir. I got on a soapbox. Well, this is a customer that's had brain injury, referred by a customer that's had brain injury. So I feel like I need to say something. But back to the original program, let's dive into these parts. we have it. Clean chain, crankset. Ooh, sparkly and clean. Got a little ceramic coating on that too. Brakes and derailleurs all ready, and bam! Look at those wheels. Ooh, super shiny. Got some clean rims, trued. Definitely clean tires. They're ready to go. Did notice on the rear wheel it does have a replacement spoke, which is doing okay for now, but I don't have a direct pull this long, or I would have replaced it. But that's kind of a little short, but in a pinch it'll work. And voila, there's the frame. Got it with a ceramic coating, some good polishing on this. And yep, I fixed that boo-boo. Kind of use, well, I'm going to be a secret on this, but it involves nail wraps and some coating. Anyway, to make it a little nicer, I want to experiment with that. Actually, kind of, it's out of the way. Not going to see it anyway with the crankset, but that definitely protects the water from seeping into anywhere and that paint from flaking any further. So, yeah, let's review. Yeah, definitely at the home stretch for sure, and yeah, gonna buff the ceramic coating there. Actually, it's still drying, so I'm going to give it a couple more minutes here, but we're going to talk about the parts. The brakes are good. The front derailleur cleaned up really well as the rear, but it does have an XT rear dur to accommodate that bigger cassette body. Basically, it's kind of what he did is retrofitted the old 10-speed system to what the more modern 11-speed, 12 speeds are by 2x. So they kind of just skipped it, but kept it the higher quality level. You can do that too if you want. And also these wheels, whew, nice and shiny, a little bit of protection on there. Use some tire treatment to make it a little bit nicer looking. Gator skin tires are good. Nothing really too worn. The chain just needs to have some fresh lube put on it. Well, and talking about loose derailleur hanger, that's all fixed up. The paint been corrected here. Playing with something with that, it actually is going to help out. I did do a little extra Atom swirl, scratch and swirl to kind of clean up some scratches here, in addition to some other little tidbits. I try to do the compound as well as the polish before I did the ceramic coating, just to kind of give it a really good once over. This frame has seen some travels, and this individual rides a lot, and kudos for him for what he's doing for advocacy of organ donation, in addition to brain damage issues as well. So hey, I don't mind putting a little extra effort into it to make sure he has the best stellar ride possible doing this event. I think it's in Tennessee or somewhere like that. So hey, humidity, whatever the case may be, more power to him, right? So let me grab a little rag and let's show off some of this polishedness. We would do this outside, but hey, it's one of those situations where it's all cloudy and cold. So, I can feel a tack at first, and it just slides super smooth. This frame has actually come back to life quite a bit. There was a whole bunch of little chunkage here. There's a couple of chips in this area, but I was able to clean that up and give it a nice coating. And yeah, the secret on this here is basically I used some of my wife's extra nail wraps, fitted in there, trimmed them, then used a couple layers of coating and a gel coat. Then I put the ceramic slam on top of it. So this is really going to protect that paint area. The problem was it was flaking up, and I had to cut it back to where it was still attached to the base coat, and therefore I applied this. I would probably use a darker color. If this works out well, I'll be using like more standard nail wraps, but I figured to do a sample and see if they work. But I think it's going to work great. I mean, it's a great way to cover up boo-boos. So if there's the one back here, if I had a silver nail wrap, I could just cover it up, and it wouldn't look as obtrusive. And anybody who's ever tried to use touch-up paint, it's always like a booger in a bottle, and it never does look right. But those nail wraps, you can get them pretty smooth. Also, what it does is fills in that void, pushes it up, so therefore it's more flush. not so indentation. And when you put a touch-up paint with, if you're going to do a paint it, spray it, yeah, you sand that down, spray this touch-up and all that. But that's a lot of expensive time and lift. But the nail wraps actually were pretty quick. So we'll give that a try. But yeah, awesome. This bike's going to be ready to hit the road very soon. Well, before you go, check out these wonderful pictures of the completed bike and ready to go for its next adventure. Thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. And if it's nice in your neck of the woods, please go for a ride. One of those things, just do it. But after this, check out the final results. Hey, if it's not coffee in your cup, it better be Bing energy drink. This has been brought to you by the energy of Bing. No, it's not liquor. Just an energy drink. Swear. Y'all are crazy. I'm thinking I'm drinking and working. Not a good combination, especially for this little guy. I save that for the evening hours when I'm going straight to bed. Any case.